Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee with Craig, where we talk about all things firearms policy, politics, culture, media, you name it. We're talking about Second Amendment stuff right here, folks. So please take a moment to like and share the program and let your friends know that this is the place to be. Also, please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as follow us on Facebook. Now, the reason why I also tell you to hit the notification button is you may not know this, but actually Coffee with Craig has been listed as explicit with Facebook, which means that if you don't hit the notification button, there's a less of a chance of you actually being notified whenever it is that we go live. So take a moment, do that. Encourage your friends to watch the program. Also, please take a moment to go to fpcgear.com. That's fpcgear.com. This is the place to go to find pro Second Amendment swag and know that every dollar that you spend there goes right back into the fight for our right to keep and bear arms. That's right. Every coffee mug, every hoodie, every T-shirt that you buy, those resources go right back into the fight. So you can support Second Amendment and you can look good doing it. That's fpcgear.com. All right. I can tell you right now that there's a halfway decent chance that some of you out there are just not going to like what I'm about to say. And it's really going to depend on where you're at on the spectrum of the Second Amendment. If you are a supporter of an individual, in this particular case, then you may or may not believe what I'm telling you is true. And what I'm hoping you understand is what I am telling you is true, but I need you to understand why this is important. Now, I, for one, I happen to like a lot of the things that our president has done. I also have some some serious concerns about some things that the president has done. And either way, if you follow me, if you follow me personally on Facebook or on social media, if I like what the president does, I talk about it and I defend it and I defend him. If I dislike something that he does, I argue it and I let folks know and I talk about it and I let folks know I don't like this thing that the president has done. I realize all in all, for the country, the president has been a positive, but there's one area where this president has not been a positive, and it's an area that I think even he recognized during the campaign was an area that he needed to step up and be active in.
We need our Second Amendment protected.
We have to protect our Second Amendment, which is under siege.
Right. He recognized that the Second Amendment was under siege from President Obama and the Democratic Party. Now, mind you, they weren't really able to do a whole lot at the federal level because Republicans, for most of his time in office, controlled both houses of Congress. In fact, the only real significant piece of legislation or policy that he was able to implement as president was the policy dealing with Social Security recipients who had someone help them with their finances. In cases like that where you could lose your gun rights because he wanted to make it so that, those individuals must be unable to or not have the mental capacity to be able to handle a firearm if they can't handle their own finances. Now, mind you, there has been in none of these cases any sort of a mental health determination by a mental health professional. It's just, his determination. But really, other than that, there wasn't a whole lot that President Obama was able to do. So, but we heard from the very beginning, from the time he first got elected, it's like, he's coming after our guns. He's coming after our guns. And, he tried to do what he could, and that wasn't a whole lot. But that was one of the things that made groups like the NRA, in particular the NRA, come out early and endorse President Trump, primarily because he said he was going to be the most pro-Second Amendment president ever. He was going to do all sorts of things. He was going to get rid of gun-free zones. He said he was going to pass concealed carry, reciprocity, and all of these things. And quite frankly, none of it has come to pass. He has, however, offered some policy solutions that one could say are not necessarily consistent with the Second Amendment.
Well, in the category, you've spoken about it, Mr. President, gun violence restraining orders. They're called. California actually has a version of this, and I think in your meeting with governors earlier this week, individually and as a group, we spoke about states taking steps. But the focus is to literally give families and give local law enforcement additional tools if an individual is reported to be a potential danger to themselves or others. Allow due process so no one's rights are trampled, but the ability to go to court, obtain an order, and then collect not only the firearms, but any weapons in the possession
Or
of that
might
individual.
take the firearms first and then go to court, because that's another system, because a lot of times by the time you go to court, it takes so long to go to court to get the due process procedures. I like taking the guns early.
So, exactly. So, what he's saying here is he's saying due process later. So, in other words, let's go to court. Or no, let's go take the guns and then let's go to court. Let's take away your rights and then let's go to court. Now, mind you, our perspective is due process that's after they've taken away your rights and your property is not due process. That is not due process at all. Due process where you are deemed guilty until proven innocent, where when you step into court, you've already been deemed guilty and now you have to prove your innocence by giving no real standard, not being really told what you've done wrong. Once again, you've committed no crime, but you are guilty of being a danger to yourself or others. And we've seen how these laws have been implemented and how they're literally violating the rights of folks. You had the folks in Vermont who had their firearms taken, and they weren't the ones deemed to be a danger to themselves or others. It was actually someone who said they were going to steal their guns. These are the sorts of laws that President Trump is supporting. There was the guy who basically was shot by law enforcement because he refused a red flag gun confiscation order. Got shot, killed. Once again, these are the sorts of laws that the most pro-Second Amendment president ever supports. But that's not the only bad policy that he supports, or the anti-gun policy that President Trump supports.
I will tell you, background checks. I've called many senators last night, many congressmen, and Jeff and Pam and everybody in this room. I can tell you, Curtis, they're into doing background checks that they wouldn't be thinking about maybe 2 weeks ago. We're going to do strong background checks. We're going to work on getting the age up to 21 instead of 18. We're getting rid of the bump stocks, and we're going.
Yeah, so let's just enumerate some of those real quick. So one, he wants to do background checks. He wants to expand background checks, which we know the way in which it's currently implemented is, well, to be honest, it's a gun registry. They're asking you for the make and the model and the serial number of your firearm because they want to know what you bought. Why do they want to know what you bought? Well, so that they can keep track of it. So he supports gun registries or background. We'll go with universal background checks. He supports the idea of taking away the rights of law-abiding adults over the age of 18, but under the age of 21, from being able to defend themselves with a firearm or from being able to purchase a firearm. Interesting, because he's okay with putting a rifle in the hands of an 18 to 20-year-old and sending them halfway around the world to defend our liberty, to defend our country, but they can't have a firearm in their own home to defend themselves or their family. Once again, these are law-abiding adults. These are individuals who've, they have the right to vote. Every decision that they make they are criminally and civilly liable for the decisions that they make as adults. And yet, they do not get to exercise a fundamental right that all adults all adults, in particular our citizens, should have. He supports taking away that right. Then there's the idea of bump stocks. And then bump stock is a twofold thing. Number one, he supports the idea of banning a firearm part. And that's really all it is. It is a firearm part or firearm accessory. He believes in banning it. My question is, what other firearm accessory is he going to support the idea of banning? Because, see, a bump stock never killed anybody. One individual, one mass shooter decided to use a bump stock one time. But that was that shooter. That wasn't the bump stock. The bump stock didn't jump up and start shooting people. So he's for the idea of banning firearm parts. And if he's going to ban this firearm part, what other firearm parts is he okay with banning? Now, the worst part about it, though, is that the way in which he wants to do it, he directed the ATF to redefine machine guns to include bump stocks. Now, mind you, machine guns are already defined in statute. That's called law, passed by Congress. So you don't get to, through regulations in the executive branch, through executive regulations, you don't get to redefine something that's already defined in law, statute passed by the legislative branch, which is where laws are written. That's why we have separation of powers. Laws are written in the legislative branch, not the executive branch. But fortunately, President Trump is okay with violating the separation of powers in order to do what he wants to do, which in this case is ban a firearm part. Now, once again, you guys may be saying, well, I don't own a bump stock. Why do I care? Because if we allow this president to violate the separation of powers, to violate the Constitution, in order to ban a firearm part that we don't care about or don't even like, then what's to keep him or a future president from doing the exact same thing to ban a firearm or firearm part that we do like or we do care about? Now, all of these things, every single one of them, are all things that raises the question as to whether or not he's really a pro-Second Amendment president. Now, I will give him this. We have so far gotten 2 Supreme Court justices that seem to be very strong on the Second Amendment. We shall see, because they're about to hear the first Second Amendment case they've heard since McDonald in 2010. So we shall see. But with that, he also did overturn the Social Security Administration policy that was put in place by President Obama. All that having been said, we still don't have national concealed carry reciprocity, and I haven't heard him pushing it or talking about it at all, either during the first 2 years when Republicans were in control of both houses of Congress, or now. We still have federal gun-free school zones. He said he was going to get rid of gun-free zones, but he hasn't gotten rid of them. I'm telling you this to tell you. I'm saying this to tell you this. I agree. He is probably still much better than Hillary Clinton would have been had she been elected. But we cannot simply sit back and allow him to not support the Second Amendment, to not follow through on his commitment to being the most pro-Second Amendment president ever. We cannot take a look at these policies that he is pushing, that he's promoting, that he's talking about, and some of which he's actually implementing, and allow our rights to be taken away. We cannot allow that. He needs to know that we are watching and that we are paying attention, and that we will hold him accountable if he continues down this path. Now, President Trump, he knows what side his bread is buttered on. There's a reason why he's fighting to make sure he builds that wall, because he knows that people are paying attention. Well, guess what? We, the people who support the Second Amendment, we're paying attention. We need to let him know. And the main way we let him know that we're paying attention is pointing out when he's screwing us over. And that's what he's doing with a number of these policies. And we need to let him know, say, dude, get it together. Get on the right track. Support our Second Amendment. Anyway, folks, that's going to be it for today's Coffee with Craig. We very much appreciate you guys liking and sharing this program, telling your friends to tune in, because we are the home in the fight for civil rights. Got to use them, you're going to lose them. You guys take care.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.